On November 4th, 1979, the Iran hostage crisis began when 66 Americans, including diplomats and other civilian personnel, were taken hostage at the Embassy of the United States in Tehran, with 52 of them being held until January 20th, 1981. The incident occurred after the months following the Iranian Revolution, and with support from Ayatollah Khomeini, who had led the Iranian Revolution and would eventually establish a present Islamic Republic of Iran. The embassy was assaulted and seized by Iranian students. Operation Eagle Claw was an attempt to rescue the 52 embassy staff held captive by revolutionary Iran on April 24, 1980. The operation was ordered by President Jimmy Carter after the staff was seized at the embassy. The operation was one of Delta Force's first encounters, and they would encounter many obstacles and failures and would subsequently abort the operation. 8 helicopters were sent to the first staging area called Desert 1, but only 5 arrived in operational condition. 1 had encountered hydraulic problems, and another was caught in a sandstorm, and the third showed signs of a cracked rotary blade. During the operational planning, it was decided that the mission would be aborted if fewer than 6 helicopters remained operational upon arrival at the Desert 1 site, and despite only 4 being absolutely necessary. As the U.S. forces prepared to withdraw from Desert 1, one of the remaining helicopters crashed into a transport aircraft that contained both servicemen and jet fuel. The resulting fire destroyed both aircraft and killed 8 members of the armed forces. But what if, in an alternate timeline, somehow Operation Eagle Claw was conducted and was successful, Delta Force was able to storm the embassy, free the hostages, and escape from Iran to Saudi Arabia? The helicopters would bring all parties from the stadium to the Manzarieh Air Base, and the C-141s would fly them to an airbase in Egypt. The 8 helicopters would then be destroyed before departure, and after arriving in Egypt, the hostages would be returned to the United States. The impacts in Iran had seen the hostage crisis strengthen the prestige of Khomeini and the political power of the Islamic theocrats who opposed normalization with the Western world. But in this timeline, the hostage crisis has ended in an embarrassing defeat for the Ayatollah's regime, where the U.S. snatched back the hostages. Iran has also lost any leverage that it thought it had over the United States now, and the government will look even more weak and unstable to Saddam Hussein in neighboring Iraq. With that, it's possible that Iraq invades Iran earlier in this timeline. Instead of invading in September of 1980, Iraq invades in the summer of 1980, perhaps in May when border skirmishes between the two countries had become a daily occurrence. In this alternate invasion, Iran's defenses are not going to be as built up as they were in our timeline, as Iran had been deploying its units to the border in June and July to prepare for a potential war, and this invasion comes before then when Iraq seizes territory quicker and has less casualties. However, Saddam Hussein is still an idiot and is a terrible military leader, and regardless of these better victories for Iraq, Iran's rally around the flag effect will cause Iran to counterattack at enormous costs of human life. The Iran-Iraq war will still be a devastating conflict throughout the 1980s, but Iraq will be more dug into Khuzestan, and it'll be somewhat more difficult for Iran to push Iraq out, which will have unknown impacts on things in the war like future operations, Kurdish rebellions, and when the war ends, as well as under what conditions the war ends. Back in the United States, American political analysts cited the standoff in the Iran hostage crisis as a major part in the downfall of Carter's presidency, culminating in his landslide loss at the 1980 presidential elections. The hostages would formally be released into American custody one day after the Algiers Accords were signed, just minutes following the first inauguration of President Ronald Reagan. With that, how would a successful Operation Eagle Claw impact this election? Although Carter handled the hostage crisis, the economy still absolutely sucks in 1980, and I personally don't see Carter winning a second term. However, Reagan doesn't win in a massive landslide election either. Instead, Reagan just has a moderately successful electoral win over the incumbent President Carter, purely over the economic stagflation and gas lines which plagued America during the end of Carter's term. As for the wider Middle East, I think a successful Operation Eagle Claw could deter Iran and thus Iranian proxies such as Hezbollah from taking hostages, and perhaps might deter Hezbollah from conducting the Beirut barracks bombing in 1983 during the Lebanese Civil War. And if that somehow did happen, then terrorist groups would not look to the incident to cause terror attacks that kill Americans in order to force a withdrawal or achieve political goals. But that's just one short scenario about if Operation Eagle Claw was successful. What do you think would have happened? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.